Steven Spielberg laughed when he heard it. Not the laugh of someone delighted, but the laugh of a man convinced the composer was joking. The date was 1974. The film was Jaws. Spielberg had asked John Williams to create the score. Williams was then relatively young in his career as a film composer. Spielberg gave Williams specific direction. He wanted something weird and melodic. He wanted something tonal but eerie. He wanted the audience to feel the presence of threat even when they could not see what threatened them. What Williams sat down at the piano and played was two notes: E, then F, then E again, then F, then E, then F, then D, then F, repeated with slight variation. That was the entire composition. That was the whole theme. Spielberg stared, then he laughed. "You cannot be serious," he said to Williams. "This is what I asked for," Williams replied. "Not what you expected, but what your film needs." The exchange lasted only moments, but it contained a fundamental disagreement. It was about how to score a film. How do you frighten an audience? What does it mean when a composer understands a director's vision better than the director understands it himself? Spielberg had made what seemed like a reasonable request. A summer blockbuster about a creature, a threat, a monster that needed to feel real and present. The traditional approach would be elaborate and orchestral, something grand and recognizable, something that announced itself with unmistakable authority, something that reassured viewers the danger was being taken seriously. Williams had listened differently. He listened not to what Spielberg said he wanted. He listened to the film Spielberg had actually made. The production of Jaws had been troubled from the start. The mechanical shark, nicknamed Bruce, malfunctioned constantly. Saltwater corroded its systems. It moved with unconvincing stiffness and jerks. Test audiences laughed at it. Spielberg could not show it in detail. Every underwater sequence risked becoming comedy. So he made a choice. One born from both artistic vision and practical desperation. He would show the shark almost never. He would suggest it instead. He would use the ocean itself as threat. Beach would become a place of invisible danger. The opening scene in darkness would be his canvas. He built the entire film on absence and implication. He embraced, almost without realizing it, the principle that the unseen is more powerful than the revealed. But when it came to the musical score, Spielberg reverted to convention. He wanted something elaborate, something that would do the emotional work on its own, a theme that would make audiences feel dread in scenes where nothing was visible. He wanted the orchestra to compensate for the mechanical shark's weakness. Williams had watched the rushes. He understood what Spielberg had been forced to construct. He recognized Spielberg's directorial strategy, minimalism, suggestion, the power of what is not shown. The score, he understood, had to match that strategy, not oppose it, so he had written two notes. Not a development, not a melody in the traditional sense, not even really a theme, just E and F, repeated with subtle variation, simple, economical, almost childlike in its spareness, utterly hypnotic. Spielberg's first reaction was disbelief. This seemed like a joke, or incompetence, or deliberate provocation, but Williams was not joking. He was not being lazy. He had made a calculation. When those two notes were played by the full orchestra, something would occur. The basses, the cellos, the lower registers rumbling and resonating through the theater. They would create an effect far more powerful than any elaborate melody. They would sound like something moving beneath the surface. They would sound like waiting. They would sound like an intelligence moving through alien space. Patient, indifferent, absolutely certain. Spielberg heard Williams play it again. He imagined the orchestration. He understood. His own film had already established the principle. The unseen is more frightening than the seen. The score Williams had written respected that principle completely. It matched the film perfectly. Within days, Williams had orchestrated the theme in full. The recording sessions proceeded swiftly. The result was what it has remained for 50 years, the most iconic, most imitated film score motif in cinema history. Two notes that redefined what a score could accomplish. Two notes that proved that simplicity, when applied with complete confidence and rigorous understanding, could be more powerful than any orchestral elaboration. The Jaws theme did not announce itself. It did not seduce with melody. It did not reassure. It simply was present, like the shark itself, always there, always waiting, never quite visible, but absolutely real. A presence that filled the space around the story. Other directors studied it. Other composers learned from it. Film scoring changed. The language of suspense in cinema transformed. The vocabulary of blockbuster threat evolved. The way audiences understood danger in movies traces itself back to that moment, back to 1974, to the moment when Spielberg laughed and Williams did not laugh back. Years later, Spielberg reflected back on that moment. Without that score, the film would have been only half as successful, not somewhat less. Not a percentage point or two. Half. He was saying something clear. The threshold between a good film and one of the most consequential American films ever made came down to one thing: a composer refusing to write what was expected. A director wise enough to recognize that refusal as clarity instead of provocation. The two notes remain. Audiences hear them now and feel what audiences felt in 1975. The presence of something vast and ancient. Something merciless moving through the water, moving toward them. They do not hear the mechanical shark. They do not hear the machine that never worked. They hear something far more vivid and terrible. The score and the direction conspired together. They made the audience imagine something beyond what any mechanical device could produce. The joke Spielberg thought Williams was making became something else entirely. It became the most serious artistic statement about fear that cinema had ever encountered.